Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is Thursday, August the 7th, 2014, and this is the August meeting of the Riverfront Design Committee. First order of business is roll call, please.
Paul Dugman.
Present.
Anthony Black.
Here.
Kenny Dennis. Brian Doherty.
Here.
John Joyce.
Here.
Don Kasperite.
Here.
Richie Split. And David Jost. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on July the 3rd of this year. You received a copy of the minutes in your packet. Does anyone have any questions, changes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Mr. Yost, seconded by Mr. Doherty. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item 4, consent docket. There are none. 5, continuance requests. There are none. Item 6, cases for individual consideration. Item 6A, case number SRCA-14-0005 at 1501 South Walker Avenue. Lisa?
Yes, this is the law office that you guys approved several months ago, but at that time, the designer didn't have the landscape plan done, and we've continued it twice. And Mark Crittenbrink is not. Are you here from? They don't have the landscaping plan done, but per our current bylaws, they can only continue it twice.
So we've had two continuances?
Yes.
Okay, so we can't continue it even if we wanted to?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is that, I'm looking at read it, but yeah.
Okay, does anyone care to make a motion?
So is the motion then it has to be denied, or?
If you take no action, it has the effect of a denial. So, up to you.
Okay, yeah, so our proposed motion was to officially deny it and then have Crittenbrink come back and reapply.
Okay.
When they are actually ready.
Does our no action maybe speak more where we are rather than denying it? I don't think we're, I'm just thinking out loud here a little bit. Would a no action be more appropriate?
Well, it has the effect of a denial, but
It doesn't say that we are in opposition.
It, and you've decided it's not appropriate. So yes, perhaps this way, you're saying you have nothing. You can't continue it anymore. So taking no action means none was taken. He has no continuances.
So do we need a motion to not take action or just skip motion?
Don't take action.
So, and then it doesn't, so it just doesn't appear on the next, it's just dead. Okay.
But it doesn't affect their prior approval. What we'd be doing today would just be denying the landscaping portion, right?
It would be action, it would be a no action if that's what you decided on what is before you today.
It's simply have to make a new application for the landscape
for
aspect.
this portion only.
Right.
Okay, so anyone care to make a motion? Or we do not? Okay.
We have a technical request here that we do, that you consider a denial rather than no action because of the way the records are kept.
That seems like a cleaner way of doing it. Anyone care to make a motion
I'll move.
to deny the...
Yes. Second.
It's moved by Mr. Kasperite, seconded by Mr. Joyce. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 6B, case number SRCA-14-00009 at 1701 Exchange Avenue. Lisa?
These are some portable classroom buildings that the school is trying to get ready for class, ASAP. There are photographs and a site plan. They're portable buildings. There's a picture of it, but it looks just like any other, just about any other portable building you would see. It's they would be located behind the existing school building, so you'd see them from Exchange Avenue. The the front of the building is along Southwest 10th and Exchange is in the back, and the portables end up kind of in the middle of a big site. So we've recommended approval. There are no issues.
Okay,
That we saw.
I guess there are no issues with putting portable buildings with some kind, I mean, there's no issues because of the finish on them? There's
Yeah,
got to be an issue.
There,
Why are we here, you know, if it's
that
not...
we are here because staff can't approve this size of new construction.
But there's no, I thought maybe the only reason we were being asked to was because they were saying they were temporary. You're saying they could stick those things there forever and we would have no issue with that?
They could stick those things anywhere. It's compliant in terms of location, it's compliant in terms of material, height, area, so it complies with the guidelines. So, yes, they could stay there forever, and as you know, for most school sites, that is actually what happens.
Well, before we go any further, good morning. Would you please state your name, please?
I will. My name's Gary Jewell. I'm project coordinator with the Capital Improvements Department, Oklahoma City Public Schools. And I'd like to interject also, these buildings that we are putting out there, they're brand new annex buildings. They're not like some of the old metal-clad, 24 by 36 metal buildings that we've set out there before. These are a hardy plank type back material on the outside that are painted, and so it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. They meet all the guidelines for as far as permitting purposes. There's no variances that we have to do through Board of Adjustments or anything on these materials. So, and it's complete. Even the skirting down at the bottom, we're using the same type of material on the skirting. And that was another thing that was concerned about bringing it to here, was that the skirting that we used on that wouldn't be either aluminum or vinyl, but we're using the same type of material that's on the side of the buildings. So they're very pleasing to the eye. They kind of fit in with the rest of the building. The fact that it's kind of it's a painted material. It's a hardy plank type material. The walkways we're going to have are aluminum walkways. Very nice. They'll hold up through the time and weather. We're anticipating these not stay there for a long, long term, as I've written in there. We're hoping within 4 to 5 years we can make these go away. The south side of Oklahoma City has just exploded in the last few years on the population. And when Maps for Kids and the 07 bond issue, the plan was to make all annexes go away. And trust me, we don't want them any more than you guys want them here. But for what's going on right now on the timelines, to get a new bond issue passed and everything else, we have to have room for these children to go to have classes. And this is our only choice. And we do have some of the old metal buildings setting out at our service center, but we have selected not to do that on this site, to go in with some nice new buildings. So it would be a lot better working through with the city and just for everything concerned. So.
Thank you. Questions? David? No. Okay.
I do think it's important that we note that they are portable buildings, that they are not intended to be permanent. I think that the lack of articulation in the facade is maybe not specifically called out for in our guidelines, but the intent is that there is some articulation of materials, and that has been brought up in the past in the types of materials that are used, with the exception of architectural metal panels along the river were more of an exception and kind of talked through. I think that we don't want to set precedents of construction type with just a fiber cement panel that's painted for future, but if we list this as a temporary condition,
Okay.
and I don't know if we need to put a date on it, but then that would be more appropriate, and maybe. And
I know, for example, that in the past they have proposed temporary buildings like over at Edgemere Elementary, which was in an HP district, and that was denied on the fact that I would have thought that just being a design district that we just don't go up putting mobile home parks for our kids to go to school in. No, I mean, if it's a design district, it's not. I mean, I'm sure that these are the nicest portable buildings that there ever were, but they're still mobile homes. They're not safe. They're not, that, I mean, I know that we have a problem here, but to me, there couldn't be anything more against what we're about than putting these buildings in within our design district, just from aesthetics, as far as, again, I know that they're obviously not planning to keep kids inside these things if there's threat of severe weather, but still, you don't know. And not only that, they actually, if there was a severe storm, they would become a debris threat, what we call. When we go out and we evaluate schools, that's one of the things that we look at. We see, is there stuff around in the area that, is likely just going to be flying apart? And I think these would qualify.
Any other comments?
I'm very sympathetic to where the school is and what they're trying to do. I guess to me it's kind of the same thing both of you all have said, and it's like if a business came in here and wanted to do something similar in the same area, has this kind of set a precedent where we would turn around and have a hard time denying? We've gone through some really rough deals with some of the businesses and some of the facades and some of that's been, and very sympathetic to the school, but what makes the school different from the other? And I think Tony's idea about saying portable and things like this and all makes sense, but on the other hand, it is kind of a dangerous deal, because I don't know how you would turn around and separate between XYZ business coming in with a portable type building or the same outside in the same area and say, well, we allowed it at the school, but we didn't allow it here when we're talking about the design district.
Lisa, did the staff treat this application any differently than it would have a private business application because it was a school?
Yes, if it were, let's say, a restaurant, this actually came up yesterday, we're talking about walk-in coolers, they're just these little metal stub-outs, and on businesses, the code isn't clear that they have to be clad, but we have been enforcing that they get screened. So I would liken this to this. We were also, we were very sympathetic to the school trying to get open. Could we approve it with the temporary motion for some sort of time limit, and would you be able to clad it in something else? Or would they be removed in 2 years?
Well, it probably won't be 2 years. I'm being honest. I could come up and tell you all kinds of fabrications. Oh, yes, we'll have this done in 2 years. Well, we've got to pass a bond issue first, okay? And we still have the 07 bond that we're using right now, utilizing. We have debt out there that we're trying to encumber. And then so once that gets down to a certain point, I would anticipate within the next year and a half, they are going to go out for another bond issue. They got to wait a certain amount of time to get it to where the property taxes are not going to go up by getting a bond issue out. We have to build more schools. We need, especially the southwest side of Oklahoma City, we need at least one more high school, one more middle school, and probably 3 to 4 more elementary schools. And we're in a situation right now, we don't have much choice. It's grown so much. We've had the city involved, we've had everybody else involved with Maps for Kids. Everybody has seen all these timelines. They've done valuations of how many rooms we needed for Maps. We did for the 07 bond. We're still building gymnasiums and classrooms right now onto these schools. And so, yeah, if we could get our crystal ball out and say, oh, well, we know this is going to be this, but our plan is hopefully within the next 5 years to have these gone again by the time because we'll have to get a bond issue. It'll have to go through design. It'll have to get some properties secured and get it built. And we all know that doesn't happen probably in a two-year time limit. So I'm just being honest about it, that I would hope that within no more than 5 years, we can make these go away. We did not want them. We don't want them any more than you want them to see them out there. But we really don't have much of an option of doing something. So we're trying to do everything we can do with these type of buildings to comply with everybody's guidelines. We've met everything that has to do with the city requirements on the type of material, setbacks, ADA. That's the reason where I'm setting these at. I'm kind of setting them too back in the back side where, yeah, it is, exchange is on that side, but it's on the back side of the school. It's the best place for ADA purposes. It gives me a ramp coming down, a egress back into the building, as close as places I can get back into the building without having any steps or anything else, to where if there is any problems, any bad weather, yes, like you said, bad weather comes up, we're not going to leave them out there. They're going to come inside the building. And so we have thought about all this stuff. We've really considered a lot of different avenues on this. It's just, we're in a crunch. And we just appreciate, we're at your mercy that you guys would allow us to do these for a timeline.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clapp.
I'm wondering whether if we could just note in the motion that either hardship or emergency exception or something, and just say that our intent is not that this is setting a precedent, just so it's noted. I'm wondering whether legally, if that's something that would be, just so that somebody could look back at it sometime and see that this was an emergency exception that we were doing based on the individual case.
That could be a part of your findings, your specific findings. And you say all of that, and then if that's the motion that's approved, then that goes forward, and everybody from this point forward knows why you did it.
Someone care to make a motion? Unless there are any other comments?
To follow up on what Rita was saying, for HP, for example, when they make motions, their motion would be something like, Tony would say, I motion approval with the specific finding that the applicant is under hardship for space and funding.
My only question before we go this route is that we are not allowed latitude to legislate outside of our guidelines. So are there any opportunities that are available to us, and it would not be facade material because of the construction type, there's no foundation under it to support any kind of alternate base material, and it wouldn't really be feasible to do it in that way, but is there a buffering, landscaping, anything that would allow us to meet in the middle? And if
What
not,
about if we had a 6-foot landscape on the requirement on the exchange side of it, which that's where the view would come from?
I'm not sure that it would actually meet the intent, but it might show that we were taking the steps necessary, and for our precedent, not only were we noting that it was kind of an emergency situation, but we were also stating that there is some responsibility to stay within our guidelines.
If we require that landscape 6 foot on the south side, plus make Brian's point, which I think is good, is that this is being done only because of the emergency situation that the Oklahoma City schools are in.
You could do it that way and then impose the conditions that you've...
I'd be glad to make that motion that we approve it with the understanding that it has a 6-foot site-proof landscaping on the exchange side, the south side, and that this is being approved because of the emergency situation Oklahoma City School Board finds themselves in.
Are you also going to include a temporary or time limit?
Yeah, we make a 5-year time limit.
Okay, so would you...
But I think we have to be aware that certain kinds of facilities do have to have latitude. Hospitals, military installations, schools, they're operating within a budgetary system that's different than the private sector. And maybe this ought to be discussed at the city council level or something, or maybe there ought to be some staff changes made in the way that they evaluate this sort of thing. Because I think schools do a very good job of looking as good as possible when they have the money. I think hospitals do an even better job. But you can't deny students a place to have a classroom if it's necessary. And if the money's not there and this is the only available means, then that's something we have to accept. But I think the language we're talking about is probably the best we can do.
And from a landscaping standpoint, we can impose the landscaping, but we will never be able to get irrigation to it, nor will we be able to maintain it. And, you know, I'm thinking through my own thoughts. I know I brought it up, but it's really a disservice to spend a lot of money on landscaping that can't be spent on the children in infrastructure and then just watch it die. So,
And I mean, that's my concern. One is a site-proof landscape and the definition of site-proof. I mean, I think appropriate to do some landscape type of amenity is one thing. To do 4 or 5 nice crepe myrtles down there is one thing. I think site-proof is probably going, I mean, dangerously too far. And again, do they have the capacity to take care of it? I think maybe come in the middle and maybe we turn around and make some just simple, appropriate type of thing, maybe if it's conducive to you all to do something like that. You know, to me, I'm just very concerned about
I agree. I'd accept that amendment too.
that could be worked out with staff.
Okay, so would you please restate your motion so that we're all perfectly clear as to what we're approving? The motion is to approve subject to
landscaping on the south side of the building to be arranged with the staff or worked out with the staff. Is that the way we want to say it? Yes. And that it be...
With specific findings.
What?
You just want to say with specific findings that, and then...
With specific findings that this is being approved because of the state of emergency the Oklahoma City School Board is under.
And then
And it's it's a 5-year temporary approval.
And you want to make sure the applicant agrees with the conditions you impose.
I'm fine with that. I mean, and then with the 5-year, if something has happened, that we would be able to come back and to reapply if needed, correct? I mean, hopefully we won't, but I want to make sure we're not just saying that at 5 years you're out of there and with no options, so.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Casperett. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Blatt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The motion carries, subject to the requirements.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Moving on, item 7A, we have bylaws for review and comment with regard to proposed revisions. We have seen these previously, or a form of this previously. Scotty was the one that had all the knowledge on this, and so, Lisa, you want to run through these?
Yes, we realized in the past couple of weeks that these bylaws changes had been brought up or drafted or discussed at some point, but they never moved forward in terms of action from the commission, or if there were comments since this draft was from sometime in 2013. So we've included the last draft that we found, and staff is asking for the committee to affirm that is this what you guys has been working off of? Did it grab everything you guys intended? Most of the language in here is cleanup about a change to the length of terms, cleanup of some of the language, definition of quorum, clarification on how the chair and vice chair are elected, how long they serve. And Paul pointed out earlier, too, that the limit on number of continuances was struck.
And I don't recall why that was struck, but it's interesting that it's no longer, it was intended to be removed. Whether that was unduly onerous on the applicants, I've slept since then. I can't recall why we made that decision, or why that recommendation was made. So basically now, all things being equal, if there was reasonable grounds, there would be no limitation. If this is approved, there'd be no limitation on continuances.
Correct. And today, we just wanted to get your information and feedback on the content of this. We're not asking for the committee to motion approval for it.
Time-wise, I mean, would it be better for us to take these with us and with the idea of coming back with any comments at the next meeting, or is there a timeline?
That would be fine. We're in no hurry. We just didn't want it, if you guys had already initiated it, we didn't want it to fall by the wayside. We wanted to get it back on the forward track. But yes, it'd be fine to get comments
Any questions or comments?
between now and the next meeting.
Any other suggestions? Otherwise, we'll review this, if you put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
So are we discussing at the next meeting, or are we taking action at the next meeting?
Well, hopefully,
Discuss.
maybe discuss and take action. If there's nothing else on that, moving forward, number 8, communications, item A, administrative approval report. There are no items. B, comments from the planning department staff.
We have drafted a honoring resolution for Scotty for the committee to adopt at their next meeting, at the September meeting. On August 29th, we're having a workshop on the 9th floor. Did everybody get an invitation about the demolition ordinance and language? So I hope many people can attend. And then we're still preparing for a commissioners training workshop in December.
Okay, thank you.
And,
oh, sorry.
One of the other planners on the 9th floor, Brandon Myland, is going to switch he's been working on downtown framework, but he's going to switch over to our division to handle design review. So we're not sure if it'll be he or Michael doing it for Scenic River, or both of them, but either way, at your September meeting, will probably be a new staff person presenting the cases.
Thank you very much. Item C, comments from committee members. Anyone have any comments? David?
Well, just to revisit for a moment the school issue, I think we did exactly the right thing today, but I think there should be, if the staff is going to treat an application like that differently, which I think it should have in this case, there needs to be some kind of an acknowledgement of that in the guidelines, so that we don't get into wrangling about, well, we wouldn't do this for private, and we wouldn't. But, publicly funded nonprofit organizations like hospitals, schools, military installations, sometimes they just can't do the things that we would legitimately require an oil company or a big retailer to do. So I think we ought to think about something in the guidelines that acknowledges that, and then we don't have to pull our hair. But we can still I think we should always express reservations about that sort of thing, because it is outside the guidelines that we live by. But I just think it ought to be acknowledged.
I think that's a great idea, and we can propose some language for that.
Okay. Item D, next meeting date is Thursday, September the 4th. New applications were to be submitted by 4 o'clock on Tuesday, August the 5th. We're going to be meeting anyway, but are there applications?
There were, but it was just for administrative approval, right? I'm almost positive now that there's not any that need committee action.
But we have the bylaw situation.
We have the bylaws.
And then we have Scotty's
right. Yeah, there's still
items,
but there's no new cases.
Anyone have anything else? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Blatt, seconded by Mr. Caspert. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.